Hello and welcome to The Hub on CGTN. I'm Wang Guan in Beijing. This year marks the 70th anniversary of China's National People's Congress and the 75th anniversary of China's Political Consultative Conference. Throughout the years and decades, these unique Chinese systems have evolved and been refined, adapting to the changing times and practical needs. As China has just published its 2024 agenda, what are the most significant priorities on the agenda during this year's two sessions? What outcomes will be reached? How will China meet its domestic and international challenges? To discuss all these, I'm pleased to be joined by Dr. Li Cheng. He is the Director of Center on Contemporary China and the World at Hong Kong University. Dr. Li, it's so good to see you. It's wonderful to have you back on the show.
Well, very nice to be here.
Dr. Li, China convenes its annual legislative and political advisory sessions. What are the key policy signals that you're watching this year?
Traditionally, two sessions always emphasize on economy and the people's livelihood. And this is a very interesting moment in China's economic development. On the one hand, not only China, but the entire world confront major economic challenges for a number of reasons, and some are shared, some are not shared. But China is determined to recover earlier compared with the rest of the world, partly because China maintains stability, and partly China emphasizes certain areas which China have advantage. For example, digital economy, IT platform, and new energy, particularly EV. And also China emphasized on Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Great Bay Area, along with Beijing and Shanghai. These are the three clusters among the top 10 global technology clusters. So China is well positioned. But of course, that China confront the pressure on employment, and particularly young people. I think this is the meeting that wanted to emphasize China's age or China's advantage, try to overcome some of the problems, but also enhance the people's confidence.
Yeah, Dr. Li, over the past few months, a theory is gaining traction in the Western world that is China peak. Do you agree with that assessment?
Of course, I do not agree. I mean, the whole thing is completely wrong. You look at the statistic, China has the 18 trillion US dollars economy. It's based on a nominal term, but if it's by PPP, it will be 35 trillion. China is ranked number 2 economy in terms of GDP. Of course, also go back to PPP will be the first. The growth rate is still pretty good. Last year it's 5.2%. And also you see the rise of a middle class. The GDP per capita also grow very, very strongly. Now, I want to share with you that the so-called China peak, it's not the first time, many times, and especially, for example, 1989, I remember this is the first time I returned to China after I came to US to study in 1985. Yeah. The airplane was almost empty. This is early 1990. I went to Tsinghua University to study rise of the Chinese engineers, particularly in the leadership, which we call technocrats. And so that's the things that when I observed, I thought that the Chinese leadership probably will increasingly recruited for this pool, engineers and natural scientists and etc. Certainly, I was right. And also, 10 years later, in the middle of 1997, I wrote a book based on my 2 years work experience in China, talk about rise of the middle income group or middle class in Western term. But the book at the first did not get review, pass the reviewers, because all the reviewers said that this is there's no such a thing called the Chinese middle class or Shanghai middle class. But of course, we know now middle class has changed China, changed the world. China now is the largest middle class country with 400 million people. Last year, after Liang Hui in the China Development Forum, I had the great opportunity to meet Premier Li Cheng. He said in few years, China's middle class will reach 500 million. So that's a great opportunity. So I think China's best day is yet to come. International travel still relatively low, but domestic travel already returned to normalcy. I mean, the Bay Area, I can tell you during the Spring Festival, about 2.5 million people both ways went from mainland, visit Hong Kong and Macau, and also about 2.5 million visit Hong Kong people visit the mainland. So it's a fascinating development. So now the Bay Area is booming, and every weekend there's almost 500,000 Hong Kong people to go to Shenzhen to spend the weekend over there, from somewhere 300,000 people to 500,000 every week. Think about that tremendous potential for the country. So this is the things I wanted to mention. I do not want to mention about the technological development, the emphasis on innovation, e-commerce, and also new energy. These are all great opportunities for China's next phase of development.
Yeah, Dr. Li, talking about technology and AI in particular, what role do you see AI playing in the future of Chinese society and the Chinese economy?
Everything. We knew that the AI era will come, but very few people, maybe none of us, can recognize that it will come so quickly, so penetratingly, and it's changing everything. You look at the scale of the change, the speed of change, and the relying on skilled workers. These are all revolutionary. We are in the early stage of AI era. Now, the interesting thing is Chinese government and put a lot of emphasis. Probably China is among some of the governments to have the AI strategy map or work plan. And also Chinese, very interesting, Chinese not just simply emphasize technology, but also put the technology as a part of innovation, and also start to issue many regulations and norms and rules, and even I think we should emphasize on ethics. So I think that also as to repeat the obvious, that the Chinese government also call for international cooperation in various areas, including war and peace. The interesting things is that in San Francisco meeting, I think a potential a landmark agreement is between President Xi and President Biden, talk about the human control, continuation of human control of use of nuclear weapon in the era of AI, because otherwise it will be a terrible, a devastating situation. So I think I'm glad that two AI great powers form a consensus on this area. We probably will see more information about that agreement in the months to come.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there to see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference. Facing the unknown is always difficult. In a world in turmoil, it's easy to lose orientation. But when the storms come, we have to see the possibilities. Reinvent. Find new opportunities. Discover a path forward. CGTN. See the difference.
Dr. Li, there are challenges, though, facing the Chinese economy. If you look at the fact that tens of trillions of RMBs worth of savings have been added to Chinese households, while household consumption remains less than robust. and also for foreign companies, according to AmChamp and British Champ and European Chamber. Not a whole lot are leaving China, but they're not reinvesting as much or as expected. So what policy signals do you think these two sessions from the Chinese government can send to its domestic consumers, investors, as well as global investors, to really ensure that China is perceived as still a promising market to invest in?
I think it's a very, very important question. Now, of course, that the previous two-digit growth is over, and the previous model of economic development also largely over. China cannot be driven by property development, and the stock market, the IPO list will profoundly change in terms of global economy. And the Chinese leaders is right. China should be concerned about the risk in the financial sector. So that's actually explained Chinese leaders wanted to have the financial reform and they wanted to emphasize our financial risk vulnerability. If you look at the previous meetings in the past couple of years, maybe even earlier, 6-7 years ago, President Xi Jinping already emphasized the need to deal with the risk that China confronts. Financial risk is one of the top. Now, of course, the Chinese economy faces serious challenges. Private sector needs to really have the new input and let them to play an important role. I hope this Liang Hui will emphasize the importance of private sector role. Of course, Chinese leaders are aware of that. I was in last year's meeting in the China Development Forum, and Ding Xuexiang said that China needs to welcome foreign investment. China should be part of the international global economy. It's not a choice, it's a necessity. So these are the leadership emphasis. But still, with some challenges, the reason is not, some people blame that the policy or kind of overemphasis on security. But I think the reason is complicated. On one hand, not China, all countries emphasize security in today's world. Without security, how could you develop? But there's some other reasons. One is a structure change of Chinese economy. The so-called new normal now become a reality. Second is global economic slowdown. And also the so-called China past the peak, and also overemphasis Taiwan, the risk of Taiwan Strait. These all play around in a way that the people are very much concerned about China's economy. Of course, that does not mean that the Chinese government should not do much. But on the other hand, we should put the issues in the global perspective, not just talk about the government policy. Now, of course, if government wanted to fix that problem, they still have some stimulus plan can apply. I actually favor this kind of stimulus plan, but we should also recognize if the stimulus plan still does not work, that I will tell you, this will tell us it's multiple reasons involved. They want to make sure that when you use, definitely effective. At the moment, the cost for this stimulus plan probably is still it's a concern we need to figure out, China needs to figure out. So I think it's a comprehensive package, emphasize innovation, emphasize big consumption, middle income development, and also continue to promote foreign trade. Certainly, China now waiver a lot of visas, a lot of countries' visas to China. This is a clear indication China wants to attract. But most importantly, actually, I would argue that in the world, many countries overly concerned about the security or stability in the country. China actually in relatively good shape because China and also China's Hong Kong both can maintain stability. Why we do not put more emphasis on economic development, which is in contrast to some of the countries obsessed with security issue. So that's my recommendation. I think certainly leaders may have some different concerns, or they certainly have far more information than other people like myself, like the media and etc. But the important thing is that you uplift confidence only through the economic recovery, and otherwise that you only delay that process. So I'm in favor economic stimulus plan. I also believe that Chinese leadership have a lot of new policy can be implemented. I will be happy to go with the details.
Yeah, thank you so much for your diagnoses and advice. And on the Chinese path to modernization, that is expected to be a key concept echoed and solidified during this year's two sessions. What do you think are the most prominent features of this Chinese path to modernization?
You see, previously Chinese leader talk about socialism with Chinese characteristics. Also, there are several different variations. These are still valid, but now the emphasis on the modernization, which China want to be part of the modern world, want to be part of the international system, probably even could contribute in significant way. But it's also with the Chinese style, not the Western style modernization, but the Chinese style, but will be part of the global world, not against the modern, not against the global, but also take advantage of China's own strength, contribute that the new wave of globalization, new wave of modernization. One of the things is that the clean energy, environment development. Second is emphasize e-commerce. And the third is to not only to put emphasis on poverty elimination. China certainly scored very, very well, but also to help more people to enter the middle class, the rank, the so-called common prosperity, eventually will stimulate the three engines of China's economic growth, which is investment, consumption, and foreign trade. At the moment, all these three areas faces some challenges. This is the result of structural change. I think that if China continue to put emphasis, particularly promote private sector to let more people join that middle class rank, eventually will tell the world China is the largest market. China is an opportunity to resolve the problem, not the problem itself.
Dr. Li, thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you. Great to see you.
And that will do it for this edition of The Hub on CGTN. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Wang Guan in Beijing. I'll see you again next time.